This is the story of what happened one day in
China.
But not just any ordinary day. This was a day when Winnie the Pooh
Cucked American companies.
Well, it's been a while since the great value Mike Tyson has made another video on YouTube, so I guess this is the perfect opportunity to do it. I know why you clicked the video. Now, you clicked on the video because you saw the title and maybe the thumbnail, so I want to go ahead and get straight to the point with you and explain to you why China now is cucking so many American companies and why they have them in the world's biggest chastity cage ever. Now, let's start with everybody's fan favorite, Blizzard Entertainment, Activison Blizzard. Oh yeah, you all know, you've played their games before, they've taken your money, you've played WoW, you've played StarCraft, you've played Call of Duty, you played Destiny, they've taken your money, and Booby Cucked is sitting on piles of your money. Now, I kind of want to assume if you're watching this specific video, then you already know what's going on with these companies and why everybody is pissed off at them. But if for some reason you have managed to avoid every news outlet, every social media post, and Reddit as a whole, then I'll go ahead and explain it to you. So I'll make this as short as possible in layman's terms. Blizzard banned one of their Grandmaster players in a Hearthstone tournament after he showed his support for the Hong Kong protest. And initially, they took his prize money, banned him for a year from any tournaments, and they also fired the commentators who were hosting the event permanently. Now, let's get to the part where Blizzard gets cucked. Now, why did they do this, and why are they continuing to get cucked by China? Now, let's be clear here. What they're telling the media and what they're telling us is bullshit. But are they doing it because of China? Well, yes and no. But first, let's briefly look at the history of Blizzard Entertainment. Now, the most important details are between 2008 and 2013. This was when Blizzard became Activision Blizzard. Now, for the purpose of this video, 2006, because Booby Cucked, and yes, I have to say his name like that, was worried about the deal with Blizzard until he figured out that Vivendi, the French company that owned Blizzard at the time and the properties, could help him get access to the video game market in China. Now, Activision, which bought Blizzard, is a publicly owned company, which means they have shareholders, which means their only objective is to make money and more money at whatever the cost is, because the shareholders won't care. So now they have to make more money every turnaround, every quarter. They have to produce more money, get more cash. Forget your ass. They don't care about your games. They don't care if it's ass. Just give them the cash. But anyways, in 2013, Booby Cucked worked with a bunch of investors to repurchase the company's shares from Vivendi. And guess who was one of those big investors? The tech giant in China, Tencent. And as of right now, they own about 5% stake in Activision, which is about $2.5 billion. And hell, they remain the biggest NBA digital partner, but we'll get to the NBA later. Then in 2015, Activision partnered with Tencent to bring Call of Duty Online to China as a free-to-play game, which of course had microtransactions in it. And besides Call of Duty Online, they own other hit titles such as League of Legends, Clash of Clans, Honor of Kings, which can total up to around 48% of their gaming revenue. And to be clear, I'm speaking about Tencent, not Activision. Now let's talk about Activision Blizzard, as they have a statista on their annual revenue generated by region. Now, according to the 2018 statista, Activision Blizzard made over $1 billion from the Asia Pacific area, which I think is fair to say really reliant on the Chinese gaming market. Maybe I'm wrong. But for Activision Blizzard, it was like snorting heroin. One hit and it's all it take. They hook. It's like smoking cigarettes. You're gonna see them on commercials like, "One day I decided to get into the Chinese market. It was really good. I couldn't come back. Until one day they walked in and they threw their chastity belt on my Peter, and then they continued to cuck me." Okay, all the bad jokes aside, the Chinese game market is expected to reach $42 billion in revenue by 2022. And that's not even counting the mobile game market, which is also worth billions of dollars. And people wonder why Activision Blizzard isn't doing anything to China. Of course not. They have too much revenue to hold against them. It would be like buying a sex toy on Amazon. They would be fucking themselves in a matter of days. They're not going to do that. So yeah, when Blizzard puts out a half-ass apology saying, well, you know, it didn't have anything to do with China. Let me tell you something right now. So this is why they do things. It's all about the money. This is why any company do anything. I'll get to Apple and I'll get to NBA later. This is why in our region, NA, we have gay characters in Overwatch. They don't care about all those mouse breathers on Twitter. No, they care about their money and those succulent, delicious, tasty internet points. Which is also why they didn't ban the team that held up a sign that says Free Hong Kong, boycott Blizzard, while they banned the living crap out of the guy in China, because in China, that costing them a lot of money, costing them billions of dollars. And speaking of dollars, why do you think Blizzard come out with all this rainbow stuff? It ain't because they have a heartfelt stance against gay people. No. Don't be too naive. It's about the money. They're profiting off that type of stuff. While at the same time, they are being hypocrites because they say that they don't promote anything divisive politically in their community, while at the same time, pushing out these LGBT armbands, promoting it all over the Overwatch League. Then when you bring it up to them, they're like, man, what's politics, man? I don't know what it is. I never met the dude. You know what I'm saying, man? The dude came by one night. I ain't see him, man. I think he had some drugs in him, but I don't know who he is. Yeah, because gay rights definitely is not divisive in America. So at the end of the day, Blizzard doesn't care if you're a guy playing with other guys' balls. They care if you're a guy playing with guys' balls who have money. And speaking of balls, let's talk about the NBA. So back in the 1980s, the NBA started to make a relationship with China, and they would send the CCTV NBA games on videotape for free. And by 1992, they had a good enough relationship to have an office in Hong Kong, and by 2004, the NBA were playing preseason games in China. So how much money does the NBA make from China, you ask? Well, a conservative estimate is only around a small loan of $500 million. And also, the NBA has reached a 5-year deal worth $1.5 billion with a Chinese company. I'll give you 10 seconds to guess who that company is. Are you ready? Good. Let's get started. Well, if you guessed Tencent,
you smart.
So yeah, Tencent has that $1.5 billion deal with the NBA, which is the largest deal outside of the US itself. But what did anger China and make them take down promotional banners from buildings, while ejecting anybody who has a sign supporting Hong Kong in their games? Well, of course, naturally, it would start on Twitter, when the general manager of the Houston Rockets, Daryl Morey, made a tweet about standing with Hong Kong, which, if you haven't noticed by now, is against the ultimate goal of the NBA, so they told him to shut the hell up. But that shit was spreading faster than Rule 34 of any new female character coming out. So the NBA did what any company that is heavily financially reliant on another country with no way backing out would do.
To all those affected, I want to say, we are deeply sorry. We're sorry. We're sorry. We're sorry.
So yeah, the NBA apologized while dripping honey out of their mouths. And James Harden, one of the players for the Rockets, even apologized himself. He said, "We apologize. You know, we love China. We love playing there." Translation is, "Man, I don't even know no Daryl Morey, man. I never heard of him. I ain't no Colin Kaepernick, but I'm shut the hell up." And then everybody want to act surprised when they figure out Steve Kerr ain't talking. Of course he's not going to talk. He knows that China is the ultimate bull around here, and he knows the only way he can survive is to be a cuck. If he even speaks Mandarin wrong, he's out of there. But people have been bashing Stephen A. Smith over his recent outbreak over the China situation. They interpreted his words as, "shut up and just play basketball." But let's break it down. So this part is pretty lengthy, so I'll just be cutting in and out to respond or to translate what Stephen A. Smith is telling you guys.
As the strongest nation in the God's green earth, we do business with everybody. You don't agree with their stances. You don't agree with their position. You certainly don't share their values. It doesn't stop you from conducting business, and it doesn't stop you from muzzling yourself when you need to be in the interest of what's best for this nation.
Now, my interpretation of what Stephen A. Smith is saying right now is recognize that China has a lot of money. The NBA totally recognizes the conditions over there in China, but they have a lot of money. Now, the NBA has a section called Our Calling and Values, where they list integrity, teamwork, respect, and innovation as their core values. Now, look at it very carefully. They have integrity and respect. Now, read that. They clearly state respect for our business partners, but at the same time, they say we conduct ourselves in accordance with the highest standards of ethics. Now, what happens when you're in a situation that the NBA is in right now, where those two things kind of seem contradictory and clashing? Because right now, if they side with Hong Kong, then they aren't respecting their business partners, mainly China. But if they bow down to China and kiss their ass, they are no longer going with the highest standards of ethics by aligning themselves with a government that is in a huge human rights scandal right now.
But in the interest of business, you found common ground in some respects to conduct business. And as a result of that, you moved forward. You didn't bite your tongue along the way. You didn't refrain about speaking against some atrocities that may have existed. Who didn't do that? No politician's done that. No executive has done that. No owner has done that. Of course they did. And you're Daryl Morey. You don't know better?
Giovanni, my brother, I thought you wanted to be a big dog. Well, to be a big dog, you gotta follow the rules. You gotta take the blood money and shut up. We've been doing this for years. We preach stuff to the plebs, we don't follow that. You have to learn how the game is played if you want to succeed. I'm highly disappointed in you, my brother Giovanni. I thought you wanted to be a big baller like us, but you're not one of us. We gotta take you out in the back now and toughen you up a bit, you okay?
And there's certain issues that you have to know to avoid. Actors and actresses avoid certain issues. Musicians avoid certain issues. Politicians avoid certain issues. Corporate executives avoid certain issues. Why are we acting like we don't know? Why are we acting like this is such an aberration?
See, Giovanni, come outside. I tried to tell you once more. I'm gonna tell you once again. This is how the game is played, and I don't know why you think it's any different. It's a big club, we're all in it, and I don't want to kick you out. I don't want to have to rough you up a bit, so I don't quite understand why it's such a shocking revelation to you. I thought you knew how the game was played. We were the big dogs. This is what we do. Okay, but all the jokes aside and the very bad Italian voice acting, what I think Stephen A. Smith is trying to say is the fact that the NBA has so much capital, so much to lose with China, and that one tweet can ruin everything. It can ruin all of it. And now the NBA is perpetually cucked by China because large amounts of their revenue is dependent on another country. So now years later, when controversy happens that they were probably fully aware about to begin with, but they ignored it because of money. So let's talk about Apple now. How about that Apple sending off your browsing data to Tencent? Well, not everybody, of course. Just some people. But I have to pull a Billy Mays and tell you to wait, there's more, because they're also sending IP addresses. Like mine, for making this video. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm not big enough for them to actually come after me. But Apple will come after that app used by protesters to strike police in Hong Kong. They yoinked that shit off the internet after China said no. Because just like every company we talked about so far, Apple is right embedded with China and it can't really escape. China accounted for 20% of all sales in Apple's last fiscal year. If China cut ties with Apple, they would lose $6 to $12 billion in profit. Do you think Tim Cook is going to risk that? Hell no. Because currently the only cooking Tim is doing is cooking up bullshit and serving it to you on a platter when he says anything else. But how does this come to be? How did they travel all this way down the road to glory to get cucked by China. Now, back in the iPhone's early history, it wasn't doing too hot in China. They only sold 100,000 phones over a month. Meanwhile, in 8 different countries, they sold 1 million units alone in 1 week. So what did they do about it? Well, they added another store in Shanghai in July 2010. And then the revenue started to double. And when the iPhone 4 came out in October 2010, they hit the 100,000 sales mark in China within 4 days. In 2011, the Asia Pacific revenue reached $22.5 billion. And 70% of that revenue was coming from China. But Apple is currently trying to get on China's good side after they fell 20% to $33 billion for the 3 quarters ended in June. Which is why they do stuff like pulling a news app from China after they covered Hong Kong. So with all that being said, what did we learn today? Absolutely nothing. Honestly, this should not shock anybody. This is how corporations have been working for years. They have shareholders who don't give a damn about what's going on. They just want more and more money, and they're going to push for more and more money. But the backdraw to the greed is now that there's so many companies right now that are completely cucked by China and Tencent. Companies I didn't even talk about in this video, like Glue Mobile, Snap, the makers of Snapchat, Tesla Motors, they're all waiting to be bent over by Tencent. And these guys have invested in so much more. Epic Games, 40%, Bluehole, 11.5%, Ubisoft, 5%, Grinding Games, Passive Exile, 80%, Riot Games, the makers of League of Legends, 100%. The majority stockholder in that company, and even Discord. So when these American companies have so much to lose by not abiding by China, they're going to do it. And China is going to use their power to bend people to their will. And I won't be surprised if this is just the beginning of it. While this is a long video, I hope you understand now how Winnie the Pooh managed to cuck so many American companies. But for me, I'm not surprised and I'm not shocked in the slightest. This has been going on for years, but now it's getting global attention because companies will do anything for the almighty dollar and nobody should be shocked. But I hope you learned something, I guess. Because at the end of the day, people can talk about Steve Kerr not talking, but guess what? We're all cucks to some level. I mean, look at content creators. They're always getting cucked by YouTube. They can barely even say words at this point. YouTube is like, you said the P word, it's coming at your paycheck. But then again, people trash talk them all the time. But what's new? The world is very corrupt. Not surprising to anybody. As for me, I'm just gonna go play Cuphead. Don't deal with the devil. If you like the video, then like it. If you dislike it, then dislike it. Comment if you want to. Follow me on Twitter if you want to. If you don't want to, that's alright. But I'll see you guys next time. And remember, Wajija.
Michigan, most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one to stop me. Lynx is a conqueror. No, I'm Alexander. He's no Alexander. I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody as ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous. My defense is impregnable. And I'm just ferocious. I want your heart. I want to eat his children. Praise be to Allah.
Saying now, Mike.